Welcome to the Bree Pod. I'm here with me, Bree. So it's been a while since we have spoke. spoke. It's been a while since I've been here. The last time I came on, I shared about my labor and delivery, and I went live on Facebook. And then I took a couple Wednesdays off. I had every intention of sharing information and just discussing, what's been going on. But then I got lost in a good way, in just spending time with my son. So now I'm back to share more. And this time I won't leave without letting y'all know. But basically, I wanted to talk about why we had to fire our first pediatrician, or as I said in a different manner, why we broke up with her. Because, it's not to discredit her as a person, it's just as our relationship, it wasn't meant for us. Um, so after I shared about my labor and delivery, I said I had another story to share. And if you haven't listened to that episode, you can go back. I put it up last week, even though it was recorded a couple weeks prior. Um, But to leave off from that episode, I basically was discharged on, I believe, the 19th of September, the day after I needed to meet up with the new pediatrician. And when I was at the hospital, they provided, I think we saw like three pediatricians within the couple of days that I had been there because I went in on the 16th, gave birth on the 17th early morning, had to stay there the 18th, and finally was discharged the 19th due to an iron deficiency. So at this point, I was like so far gone due to the lack of sleep because, as many of you know, that has been in a hospital in general, they come in at all hours of the night, which can be great, but also very tiring. And I don't know how many hours I had of sleep at this point on the 20th, but I knew that it wasn't enough because um I could not speak well. I wasn't able to articulate what I was trying to say in many cases of different people I was seeing and talking to, even with family members calling and checking in. It was very hard to put my thoughts into words because I was that far gone and tired. Um, well, really all three of us, my husband, the baby, and I. So anyway, the 20th rolls upon us. At this point, my son and I had a better understanding of each other and how latching works, but we did not have like timing down yet. So I didn't know. I don't want to say it's perfect now, but at that time, I wasn't sure when he was going to eat, like what time it would hit, because yes, I would latch him on, but then it would be up to him on how long he would suck for. So I didn't know what time it would hit, but I tried to go early as possible to the appointment that we had, which was at like 2:30, but it still worked out and didn't work out where he only was fed halfway. This is an important key to what I'm sharing because this is what kind of affected a little bit of a domino effect of things that went down. So at this point, he's half fed. I know he's half fed. I'm not, I had no intentions of leaving him half fed. I had every intention of feeding him when I came back home because we were only 3 minutes down the road. Like, not a big deal. So anyway, I bring him into the pediatrician. We already had issues with the hospital sending information over to them. So that created a huge complicating nightmare because he did not have all this information there. So they didn't have all of the stuff that we needed them to have. For example, like the weight and the height and all that beautiful stuff. And what they gave him. So we also didn't realize at this point that we did have the information they needed the whole time, but it was at home in a folder that they kind of threw at us. I'm not saying the hospital didn't help because we absolutely loved the hospital. We loved our nurses. They did their best to pack in as much information as possible before sending us home. We even met with a lactation consultant before we got sent home. Uh, but it still was difficult, because, they gave us this huge stack of paper and this, like booklet that helps kind of explain certain things that you may face or need to talk about or whatever that will help with the baby and yourself. And at that point in time, I just wanted to sleep. I wasn't really thinking about, um, I wasn't really thinking about like reading it or looking at all the documents I had because I had been woken up so many times those past I think it's 3 or 4 days. That was kind of like, I just want to go home, feed my child, and go to bed. Like that's what I needed to do. Um, and I kind of got to do that, but not really the day before. So by the time I hit the next day, I was kind of pissed at this point too because I was just like, okay, I'm tired. Do we have to see the pediatrician this close to discharge? Because we literally saw the hospital pediatricians. But they're like, no, this is the only appointment that we have. You have to go to this, at this time. Fast forward back to the day of. Anyway, so we're tired. We don't realize that we don't have the proper information either. We had it the whole time, didn't realize this. Um, and the hospital has no idea who our pediatrician is. They don't do business together or something. Apparently, she did business with a different hospital. We didn't understand this because this person has been in the business for years. Like if you look at their profile, they've been doing this for a very long time. So we're like, how do you not know this hospital? Um, and that was kind of little red flags that I saw that I was like, is this really something that, I should be in? I don't know. It just felt like I was already getting red flags, but I was ignoring them like, nah, you're just too tired, this and that. So anyway, we get there. They only have one sheet of paper that the hospital finally sends them, and it's really not a lot of information. It's basically the weight that he started at and the weight that they weighed him at before he left. Or no, the weight that they weighed him um at the actual office we were in with this pediatrician. So he was 7 pounds and 1 ounce. He went down to like 6 pounds, and I do not remember because I can't. There's some information I cannot remember to save my life, because it's all a blur. But whatever it was, she was freaking out, and I was confused because when I was at the hospital, we had the same number. I mean, literally, I was at the hospital the day before, and they were like showing us this growth chart. They're like, "This is where he's sitting right now. This is normal for him to lose weight. He's gonna gain it back, and you're in a good percentile that we feel comfortable sending you home, blah blah blah." So when we get to the pediatrician, she does not feel the same way. Well, first off, this poor guy is crying because he's hungry. Now, mind you, he only had one side. I still had yet to give him the other side, which I had planned on doing. She's like, your son is hungry. You're not feeding him. And you need to, basically, I need to sit down and feed him right now because it came off as malnourished. Um, and so at this point, I'm really tired. I'm not handling things very well mentally. And I hear, you're not feeding your son. which is exactly what she said. And I sit down in the corner of the room and I start to pretend that I'm taking notes because I'm trying to stop myself from crying because I did not want to cry in front of her. I was just like, no, no, it's okay. Just write it down. And she just starts railing it in like, you need to feed him 10 minutes on each side. And every 2 hours, you need to wake him up, or even an hour and a half. And then I was writing all this down, and now I'm just bawling. Like, I cannot hide it anymore. I basically was told that I'm not feeding my son. Not basically, I was told that. Um, and now I'm triggered. I'm upset because, I don't want to hurt my son. The feelings that the feelings that were coming to me that I was dealing with, um, I the feelings that were coming to me that I was dealing with, I was just like at a loss. I could not believe that this is what's being told to me. I could not believe that I could be hurting my son. And I was like, how am I going to do this? Because at this point, I'm like, I'm not sleeping at all. Once I finally do get him latched, he's eating, but he's eating when he feels like it. So it's not like a full 10 minutes is him fully eating. So she says to keep him on for 10 minutes, but she means 10 minutes of him actually feeding. So when you calculate that time altogether of what she's saying, there is no rest. Rest does not exist because he would have to actually feed for those 10 minutes on each side, which he wasn't doing. He's doing his own kind of like suckle suckle here. He'd be like on maybe a good 5 minute go and then fall asleep, suckle suckle, wake him up, maybe a minute. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't perfectly 10 minutes, 10 minutes. And then that is just feeding. That's not including, when you need to get up to use the bathroom or feed yourself or sleep. Like when they're like, oh, sleep when the baby sleeps. By the time you get yourself to sleep, this dude's up to eat again. This is how it looked like for me in my mind as she's saying, this is all the stuff you need to do. I'm freaking out. She turns around because she's asking me a question and sees that I'm crying. And then she looks at my husband and she's like, why is she crying? Um, I don't know. Maybe because you just told me that I'm hurting my son, basically. So I'm just bawling even more and more and more because I'm like, how do you not know why I'm crying? Like, uh, you just gave me the most devastating news as a new mother, just discharged out of the hospital the day before. So Jeremy has to take over with the questions that she's asking because at this point, I am not computing anything. Everything that's coming in, everything that she's saying, it's gone. Like, I don't know what she's saying. I don't have an answer, and I don't know. That's all I could think is I don't know. She asked how many times did he pee? I made shit up, which is so dumb because you're not supposed to do that. But I was so out of it and so like lost. I was just like, I don't know, maybe 3 times. I don't know. And because I made stuff up, it just made it sound worse. And again, I wasn't trying to make it up. She just was asking so quickly, and my mind was not taking it in. And I'm like, maybe this amount, I don't know. So every time I said something, it was wrong. She's like, that's not good enough. He needs to be doing this and that. And normally when I'm getting attacked like this, in my right state of mind, I am able to be like, oh, hell no. You know what I mean? Like, I'm able to sit down and say, listen up, Buttercup. Absolutely disrespectful, blah, blah, blah. But in this case, I couldn't do it because I was so far out. So Jeremy thankfully took over the questions. And so they leave the room for a second because she decides she needs to give me water to help me calm down. So they go out to get water. But I did not know until after, like when I wasn't there, is that she basically suggested to my husband that this may be a sign of PPD, which, for those of you that don't know, that is called postpartum depression. The thing is, though, I'm not saying that people do not get affected by postpartum depression. I don't know the timeline of it, but I knew at this point in time that I was more so a mixture of maybe baby blues, but absolutely lack of sleep, which lack of sleep is huge for me. And to suggest PPD so quickly, it was like, I don't know why she was so shocked that, like, we were discharged the day before. I came in kind of groggy as it was, so I don't know how it didn't come off as maybe they're just freaking tired. Like, not to say that I'm not saying that postpartum depression isn't I don't know how it comes about or when it happens, but I know for myself that the biggest thing that I told everybody, even in this podcast, is that I planned on paying attention to my emotions, and I had two people in my life making sure that they were also looking out for me to make sure that, you know, that they didn't recognize the signs. And at this point, everybody agreed with me that I was maybe a little mix of baby blues, but definitely lack of sleep tired, not the formation at this moment in time of PPD. And up to this point, I have not seen the signs, but I have been very um, open with the two people that I trust about it, as well as they have me taking like this quiz every time I go to an appointment to see where I'm at on the scale. So there are measures being taken to just watch out for it to see, if it's going to happen. And so with that being said, though, I'm glad I did not know this because I would have just probably kept bawling. Like, that was the thing. I tried stopping the crying. It did not work. And later when I told my friends about this, one of them reminded me, who knows me very well, said, it sounds like a part of you was triggered as well. And and I don't know why I forgot this because I'm well aware that I'm recovering from an eating disorder. But she reminded me that that could hit as a trigger too, because the thing is, when you are recovering, a lot of people still think that, oh no, she's starving herself. She'd starve her baby or something. That is not the case. I I use the word recovering because I am putting all the effort and all the stops to make sure I do not fall in to that place again. But unfortunately, when you admit something like that to people, whatever your whatever your vice was, even if you want to call it addiction or um, however term you, not however, but whatever term you want to use for it, people focus so hard on what that actual thing is and not on your recovery. And sometimes I feel like that can be really um painful because it feels like you can't be trusted. And the thing is, I understand that there was a time where I was out of control trying to control what I ate, but I also was aware of it where I gave myself the help by admitting to people that it happened, and specifically to the people that needed to hear it, which was my therapist and, the close people that were in my life that I trusted to help me. But for the people that know about it, that I just told to, to tell where I was at, there's just some people that unfortunately take it and think, oh, well, they're gonna do this because they don't understand that there's so much depth to that. There's so much strength in yourself And there does have to be a trust there in some manner. Like, especially if I trusted you in telling you that I have this, you also have to trust me that if I'm able to tell you and I'm able to go and get help for it and I'm like recovering, that I am taking every step I can to make sure it's okay. But I don't always, unfortunately get that. But I keep saying it in these podcast episodes because if you are struggling with this, with people, remembering what the part that you told them in confidence, and not focusing on the recovery portion, which it takes a lot. People don't realize how much effort is put into there, the emotions that you have to face, the thoughts that you have to face, and just the trust that I was never, ever, ever, ever going to put my son in danger. I was never going to restrict myself from food because of the issues that I was facing. There's so many reasons why. I had a therapist. I had the, I was working out. I had a nutritionist. Like, I chose all these people to come into my life so that I could get help. If I didn't want help, I could have just ignored it all and not tried and lied about it, or just, you know, had someone try to give me like some form of I don't know, like what is that group thing called? I forget. Intervention, But I didn't do that because I knew the issue with me. And I know I'm bringing this up with a little bit of I guess, seriousness in my tone, but it's because it's very frustrating when you're trying to work on yourself and you're trying to help yourself and to have people constantly be like, oh, well, you better be feeding them. You better be feeding yourself. It's like, yes, I am, but I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me and I'm doing it for my son and for my health. Um, and I did not get the help uh to mm, not do this. Like I knew the issue and I went about it. So, sorry to go on that rant, but the point of that rant is that when I was told by this pediatrician, you're not feeding your son, that was a trigger because then it like almost validated what everybody had been telling me that I wasn't doing for my son, which was really annoying to hear and pissed me off completely, because I made every effort to make sure that I not only fed myself, but fed my son. And I made every effort to fight the thoughts and to work through the feelings of all of it. And I made every effort to reach out for help and say, hey, I am shaming myself right now, or I'm attempting to restrict myself right now. Like in the recovery process, I have been super honest and open with the people that I trust that are helping me get through it. And the thing is with recovery is it's not that it just stops, but it also doesn't mean uh that I'm not determined and passionate to make sure that because it was the difference when it was just me and back prior to trying to get help versus bringing in another life. And I would never hurt somebody else. Like that was never anything that was going to happen. I am happy that I did get the help prior though, because I know that personally I needed it the most. And then my son would need it. But anyway, so it was triggering to hear that because it almost validated what people were saying. And I was in such a raw, vulnerable stage where I almost was like, well, shit, am I doing that? Am I hurting my son? Did I get so out of control that like I'm not even feeding him? Like that's how it hit. Um, and I was like, but I was doing it because the thing was, y- in the hospital, like I was trying to learn everything I could about how to breastfeed, get a good latch, how to feed him, what to do if I couldn't get a good latch. There was even some moments in the hospital where we had to basically finger feed him, like just to get him to eat. Um, and so I was pulling out all the stuff. So when I was told this, it was just a huge like smack in the face on both sides. Anyway, with that being said, um, I do realize how my friend is correct in that, yeah, it was a huge trigger as well. And it explains why I also could not stop crying. So she tells me, she stops this whole thing, like everything that you're supposed to do at your first pediatrician appointment. She stops everything and is like, you need to feed him right now. And then you need to come back in the next 2 days and we're gonna basically try this again. Um, and then she also said you're going to need to go out and get a lactation consultant, because you're gonna need help with that as well. So she had me schedule an appointment with a lactation consultant because she didn't have the resources there. And then she had me schedule again with her. After I fed him, I was allowed to leave. I asked her though, I was like, can I just go home and feed him if you're just gonna make me sit here and feed him? You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather feed him in the own comfort of my home. And it was basically like, no, you're gonna feed him right here and now because he's like malnourished, basically. So as I'm feeding him, I brought nothing to cover myself up or anything. So I'm sitting in this cold room feeding him. I'm upset. I cannot talk without crying. The tears keep flowing. I finally get home and I'm like, I need somebody else. If that is how I'm gonna leave feeling every single time with her, there's no way I'm gonna get through. So I decided to leave. I needed to find somebody else. I did call my mom first. I was glad that I did because she helped me see that everything I was doing was correct and I wasn't wrong and that he was healthy and that everything that they were saying is not true, which I needed to hear because for a little moment I was like, maybe they're right. Maybe I am out of control. Maybe I'm not helping my son. I mean, I had never felt these emotions before either. The whole like having a child, you don't even realize how much more worry and anxiety comes of it until you have one. So I'm feeling all these new emotions that I've never felt before. Uh, I am happy again though that my mom was like, no, 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 no. That is not the case. Nope. She validated how I was feeling. So then about 3 in the morning, because I spent the whole day, I'm like, I'm leaving, I'm leaving. I need to find somebody. About 3 in the morning, I started searching everything, which so much for sleep at this point. But I was like, I am not going back to that lady. I refuse to go back. But if I have to go back, I'll go back once just to keep up with the appointments because I need to make sure that because there are certain appointments with the pediatrician you need to have for your child ASAP. So I was like, well, if I have to keep up with them with this lady, I will until I get a new one. Luckily, though, 3 a.m., I found where I wanted to go. It was in network. All I need to do is give the call when the time was open for their office. So 9 a.m. that morning, I instantly call this place and I say, are you accepting new patients? They're like, yes. And let me tell you what, I let's just fast forward to getting to that appointment. It was a huge 180 turn. It went from night and day. They were personable. They were like, he's perfect, he's doing well. It's very normal for him to lose weight. Um, we're gonna see him in 2 weeks. We'll see how he goes, but right now in the growth chart, he's in a good spot. We don't feel worried. Um, and then they also had a lactation consultant on site that you see every time before you have an appointment. Like it's just protocol of theirs. So there wasn't me having to go out and search for one. And she was so sweet and like, you're doing really well. Um, just like a complete different shift. So I am so happy that I left the first person. Um, I'm so happy that I trusted my gut because after I finally had a chance to mentally understand what was going on, I was like, none of this was okay. And part of me wished I was awake enough to freak out because I would have. I have that in me where there is a side of me that can stick up for myself. And I wish that I did, but at the same time, I think I did my justice by leaving and not looking back and getting him somebody that I trusted and felt comfortable with. Because I thought about it. I went through like all these thoughts the night before, and I'm like, would you stay with a doctor like this if it was care for you? These were like thoughts to myself. And I'm like, no, I wouldn't because I felt degraded. I felt very low. I was in a very vulnerable place and she hit me hardcore. And even if it were true as to what she was saying, I wouldn't have wanted to be told in that manner of like, you're not feeding your son. I would have wanted to be told like, hey, there's something going on here. I don't know if it's, like, are you struggling with latching? Like maybe your milk supply has come in. We need to like look into some supplement, maybe a way to supplement to help him be fed. Like anyway, that wasn't accusatory and attacking because that's where I was lost and gone. Um, so I am so grateful for where we are now. They are amazing. We are not looking back. And I again go back to encouraging everyone that if you do not feel right with a doctor or someone that you are going to for health, for your child or for yourself, I highly suggest that you should never stay with someone that makes you feel, you know, almost like really that you cannot trust because you should be able to trust them with your health. That's the whole point. Like at the end of the day, yes, are there doctors that have their degrees and they have their knowledge base? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, this is just like college where you are taking out the loan, aka in this case, the insurance, and you are paying them for their service. That is why it is okay to break up with whoever you need to break up with, especially if you are paying for their service. It does not matter how many years they went to school. It does not matter if they had the best raving reviews online. If you do not feel safe, if you do not feel comfortable, if you do not feel like you are being heard, then you don't have to pay them to feel degraded or to feel like you are um a burden or any negative feeling from an appointment. Now, I'm not saying you have to break up with everybody because there are hard truths that we get too, but there's a difference between a hard truth and a difference between being unseen and unheard. And a lot of people feel guilty and shame for leaving. But the thing is, you've got to remember that it's your money and it's your body and your health. And had I not learned this sooner, um, you know, I would not know that I have endometriosis because I would have just listened to the first person that told me you just have a bad period. And with that, I am grateful that I became a fighter and advocate for my health because I was able to do it for my son too. Um, because had we stayed with that first pediatrician, I'm gonna be straight up honest with you, I don't think I mentally would have done well with her because she had that kind of personality where every appointment would be degrading. And I take things to heart, especially when I'm vulnerable, because, I've never been a mother before. I'm not trying to act like I know everything. I do listen when I need to listen. I know some of can be stubborn, but I do listen when I need to listen. And sometimes I listen when I should not listen. Just there are things that I've been told that I should not have listened because it's not true. Not everything that's said, even if you feel like it's true, because you're shaming yourself, you're guilting yourself, it doesn't mean it's true. And so I am very grateful that my mom acknowledged how I was feeling, and not just because she's my mom. She does have an input that comes from experience. She had twins, so she would be honest with me and be like, "Girl, your son's not getting fed if he wasn't getting fed." You know what I mean? Um, but anyway, with all that being said, I wanted to share this experience because if you do feel like something is wrong and you do feel like I will always say this, I'm always going to be an advocate for it. You do not have to stick with the person that you're seeing just because of, you know, they said so and they have the degree and they have the health background. Because at the end of the day, maybe other people love them, right? Like maybe the reviews are great, and that's why I'm not sharing her name. I'm not Yelp reviewing her and being like, she's a horrible person. Because there probably are people that really love her and have had her for years and don't agree, and that's okay. Not everybody has to agree. Not everybody has the same experiences as each other. So, with all that being said, we're very happy with our new pediatrician. Um, he is doing very well. He actually gained a pound. So yes, I was a little salty and I did put on my Facebook, I was like, to the first pediatrician that we saw, he gained a pound. He has been fed. So, not by doing her way either. Um, yeah, it was a little petty, but I didn't say her name. It's just kind of like I needed to be like, you know what? I did do it. Now, I'm not saying you should do that. I I was a little snarky, but uh, you know, it was important to me to do that. But I'm not suggesting it to anybody. But anyway, he's doing very well. I look forward to talking to you guys next Wednesday. I will be back on track now. Which really the whole time I was on track, right? Because I was celebrating my son and hanging out with him, so it's not like it was like bad. Little mini break, but yeah. So I have more to share. But so much happened that they're really one episode at a time, so we'll get there. Um, thank you again for following uh our path, our journey. It's been very nice to receive the messages that you've been sending, especially those of you that have faced the same things or maybe are currently facing them. It's really good to know. I'm not saying it's good of what happened, but it's really nice knowing that somebody else has experienced it too and is there for you or can relate to you. Because then you're like, I'm not alone. And it's scary feeling lonely, um, and stuff like this. So, with that being said, you are loved, you are worthy, you are cherished, and Liam and I are proud of you. Until next time on the Brew Pod. Bye.